Well, good afternoon. As we work through the second wave of COVID-19, now more than ever, we have to make sure our healthcare heroes have the access to critical PPE they need to keep themselves and others safe. Early in the pandemic, we mobilized our manufacturing might to make the masks, gloves, face shields, hand sanitizer, and other supplies we need. And this happened in a matter of months, not years. The response has been incredible and inspiring. Ontario businesses have moved fast. They innovated, they adapted. And now it's time for the government to do the same. We need to be smarter about getting those critical supplies into the hands of the frontline healthcare heroes. During the pandemic, I pushed our system. I pushed the government to move at the speed of the private sector. And we need to make sure we're spending tax dollars wisely. When your family is shopping, you go to a place, let's say like Costco, and buy groceries in bulk so you can save money. Then there's the Canadian Tire example. Canadian Tire, they stock about 50,000 products and only have about 65 people in their procurement team. Compare that to the Ontario government. Now just remember, Canadian Tire, 65 procurement officers, purchasing agents. In Ontario, we're ready for this one? We have 7,000, I'm going to repeat that, 7,000 entities involved in procurement. That's unacceptable. My friends, clearly we can and must do better. So today, I'm here to announce that we're establishing Supply Ontario. This is an all-new centralized procurement agency to help us leverage our buying power and save taxpayers money. Centralizing procurement, buying in bulk, just makes sense. My friends, when the pandemic started, it became very clear that the government's procurement system was struggling to keep up. And this is something we need to address. Whether we're ordering printer paper or PPE, we can get a better price with a bulk order, and we can coordinate our procurement more strategically. And the savings are absolutely huge. As the Government of Ontario, we could save between $1 to $2 billion, with a B, $1 to $2 billion a year to start. That's $1 or $2 billion more for critical services like healthcare and education. Supply Ontario will help us deliver the best value for the people of Ontario and ensure we have a steady and quality supply of our critical products like PPE. It will also make it easier for businesses of all sizes to work with the Government of Ontario. From the mom and pop shops to larger companies, we want to purchase and promote more Ontario-made products. In fact, I'm excited to announce today we have signed a contract with PriMed to produce 50 million surgical masks a year over the next 5 years. PriMed has chosen Ontario to set up a new major medical manufacturing facility in Cambridge. So congratulations, Cambridge. This investment will create 50 new good-paying jobs. This is great news, and we're going to keep making Ontario a great place to do business. So I want to thank PriMed for making this important investment in Ontario. With 3M setting up a new facility in Brockville to make millions of N95 respirators and thousands of ventilators rolling off the line thanks to Linamar and O2 Medical Technologies. With these investments and with today's announcement, we are making sure that Ontario will never, ever be left at the mercy of other countries and leaders when it comes to critical supplies we need. We have moved mountains to build and secure our own critical health supplies for our frontline heroes. And as we face the worst of the second wave, these investments have never been more important. Minister Thompson, Minister Bethlenfalvy, and Minister Fedeli will share more details in a moment, but I want to quickly share some important news for small businesses. You can now apply for PPE grant today, up to $1,000 to purchase masks, gloves, physical barriers, whatever you need to keep your workers and customers safe. We're also opening applications today for the $300 million rebate program to help small businesses with costs associated with property taxes and energy bills. This program will help those significantly impacted by modified stage 2 restrictions or control or lockdown measures. To make the application process easier for businesses, there's now a single portal to apply for all these grants. We're building a stronger, more resilient Ontario, a province starting down the road to recovery and the best place in the world for businesses to invest and grow and thrive. Thank you, and God bless the people of Ontario. Now I'll hand it over to Minister Thompson.
Thank you, Premier. PrimeEd has been an invaluable partner throughout the pandemic, and I am very pleased that we are taking this partnership to the next level. Over the next 5 years, PrimeEd will produce 50 million of the Level 1 and Level 2 surgical masks we need to combat COVID-19. This will happen in a brand new facility that, when fully operational, will employ upwards of 250 people producing surgical masks and N95 respirators. This is incredible news for Cambridge and Southern Ontario. Although this partnership demonstrates real progress in improving our ability to become self-sufficient in the production of PPE, the experience of sourcing PPE and other critical supplies during the first wave of the pandemic shone a light on the crack in the supply chain system in the province of Ontario. Until now, over 7,000 public sector entities have been responsible for their own procurement, getting neither the best price for taxpayers nor, as we have learned, guaranteed access to critical supplies when we need them. The Premier has said time and again, we should never need to rely on another jurisdiction to keep Ontarians safe. With Supply Ontario, we will never have to. We will transition from buying piecemeal to buying as one. Supply Ontario will lead procurement for the entire Ontario public service, broader public sector, as well as the health sector. It will increase Ontario's buying power and deliver better value to taxpayers. All the while, it will also provide central oversight of our inventory to ensure that we always have the supplies we need when we need them in order to keep our province safe and secure. Supply Ontario is a made-in-Ontario solution that will support greater domestic production as well as drive job creation and economic growth. The new agency will open up opportunities for Ontario manufacturers and innovators to bid for projects to supply our province as they answer the Premier's call during the pandemic. This agency will revolutionize the way the Government of Ontario approaches supply management. Supply Ontario will make us more efficient and cost-effective, which will benefit all individuals, families, and businesses. I firmly believe Supply Ontario is a true win for this province, and it gives me great confidence in our strength and resilience as we look towards recovery. I will now turn things over to my colleague, Minister Peter Bethlenfalvy.
Well, thank you, Minister Thompson, and thank you, Premier, and good afternoon, everyone. Last month, Premier Ford and I launched Ontario Onwards, Ontario's COVID-19 action plan for a people-focused government. This groundbreaking plan will improve the way people and businesses interact with government, saving them time while making government operations more efficient, with the ultimate goal of providing more convenient, more reliable, and more accessible programs and services. Today, we're here to launch one of Ontario Onward's signature projects, the establishment of Supply Ontario. This centralized, streamlined supply chain agency will leverage the immense bulk buying power of our province and deliver greater value for taxpayer dollars. Aujourd'hui, nous lançons l'un des projets phares de notre plan d'action, Faire progresser l'Ontario, l'établissement d'approvisionnement Ontario. Cet organisme centralisé et rationalisé de la chaîne d'approvisionnement permettra de tirer parti de l'immense pouvoir d'achat en gros de notre province est de mieux utiliser l'argent des contribuables. It's a vital step forward in our plan to meet the needs of the public today, which means bringing government into the 21st century. We're seizing this moment to deliver government programs and services with unprecedented speed and convenience. Because in the midst of a global pandemic, one thing is for certain: the world has changed and government must change with it. Thank you. I'll now invite Minister Fedeli to say a few words.
Thank you, Peter, and thank you, Premier and our ministers. PrimeEd is a great example of an Ontario company that stepped up and demonstrated the best of the Ontario spirit in the fight against COVID-19. They are part of an innovation and technology ecosystem that will make the solutions of tomorrow a reality today. That is why the Ontario Made program is so important. Just a few short months ago, we teamed up with the Canadian manufacturers and exporters to launch the Ontario Made program. We unveiled the Ontario Made label and put the call out to our world-class manufacturers to get involved in the program and to have PrimeEd join Ontario Made and use the Ontario Made label is indeed a credit to this program. Through Supply Ontario and the ongoing work of the Ontario Together program, we will further encourage domestic production for the goods we buy, creating good jobs and growing our economy right here at home. It will create greater opportunities for Ontario businesses to bid for Ontario government projects. Ontario small businesses and innovators will have the opportunity to help solve targeted challenges, and there will be a focus on ensuring greater economic benefits for our own families from Supply Ontario. Our government will continue to create the conditions necessary for a competitive and attractive business climate and removing unnecessary red tape so that Ontario companies can do what they do best: innovate, invest, and grow. Thank you.
We'll go to the phone line for questions. First question, please.
Your first question comes from Laura Stone with the Globe and Mail. Please go ahead.
Hi, Laura.
Hi, Premier. There's a growing call for transparency over how your government makes decisions and who it listens to. The Toronto Board of Health today said it wants the government to release all the advice given to Dr. Williams and to your cabinet from the public health measures table and other tables. We've heard about public health staff having to sign NDAs to participate in this. So you've said you've been transparent. You said the public will see everything you see. Yep. Are you prepared to make all of this advice public? And if not, why not?
Well, Laura, I don't know of any other government across Canada that's been more transparent. It's unprecedented transparency. What I know, people find out, and they find out at 1 o'clock every single day when I'm out there. We're one of the first provinces, I think us in BC, that showed modeling and dashboard. Anyone can go online, see where the ICU beds are, where the capacity of the hospitals are. They can run through the whole gamut. And I'm going to continue being transparent, because I took the belief right from the beginning of this pandemic, and I told our cabinet, our caucus, I said, anything that we know, we're coming out there in a day or the next day, and we're going to be transparent and tell the people. And a very simple philosophy, we're all in this together. I can't get through this by myself. I can't get through it with just our government. We need the people's buy-in. Without the people's buy-in, without businesses' buy-in, we aren't going to get through it. But thank God, the people have bought in and became Team Ontario. The companies became Team Ontario, Ontario-made products. We've all stuck together, and that's how we're going to get through this. But I'll continue being transparent on anything I know.
Follow-up?
Premier, with all due respect, the public had no idea that Public Health Ontario had recommended thresholds 4 times lower than what your government initially proposed until it was revealed in the Toronto Star. So there's a missing piece here to do with accountability about who in your government recommended the 10% threshold in the red zone. Was it Dr. Williams? Was it you? Was it cabinet? Or was it both? And please don't say it's just some amorphous group of experts. Can you answer clearly who decided on the 10% And now that the
Yeah.
framework has been changed, do you admit that you were wrong?
Well, again, Laura, it's not about being wrong or right. I'll tell you, Dr. Williams signed off on the last rollout that we had, and along with lowering the thresholds. So on both items, a week before, when we saw the numbers at 900 to 1,200, he signed off on it. And I'll take responsibility for everything in this province, as I have from day one, and I'll continue doing that. But again, I listened to Dr. Williams, Dr. Brown. Dr. Brown came out here, I think once, maybe he didn't, he told me, just under Dr. Brown has 100 docs giving him advice. Not to mention who Dr. Williams works with, or any of the other doctors, be it Dr. Dirk. But we're going to continue being transparent, and I'll pass it over to the Minister of Health. Thank you.
Well, we have been transparent with the people of Ontario since this pandemic began. We do have as the Premier said, the daily press conferences where you're welcome to ask us any questions about decisions that have been made. But we also have people coming forward. Dr. Williams does 2 briefings per week on his own without any politicians being around. People are, again, available to answer any questions. We do publicly release information. We've had our first tranche of information that's released, telling people about what the situation is in their local public health region, what's happening with hospital capacity, how many deaths, unfortunately, there have been, and so on. We're preparing a second tranche of information because we want people to receive all of this information. It's being prepared now with the digital services for presentation, and we're going to continue to do that. It's very important that everybody knows what decisions are being made, and we're continue to indicate that and keep the public fully informed of everything that's going on with respect to COVID-19 and the steps that we're taking as well to combat it.
Next question.
I'm gonna follow up on Laura's question too. Our team here is the only team in the entire country. I'm the only Premier in the entire country. I'll even go one step further. I'm the only elected official in the entire country that comes out here every single day, never missed a day, unless it's a civic holiday, but never misses a day, and takes questions from the media, and tough questions too. So I don't shy away from it at all. I'm going to continue coming out here every day, informing the people of Ontario, and I'll tell you, that doesn't happen across the country in any jurisdiction except here. So I'm going to continue being transparent.
Next question, please.
Your next question comes from Haley Cooper with News Talk 1010. Please go ahead.
Hi, Haley.
Thank you. Hi, Premier.
Hi.
We've heard more positive news today about a potential COVID vaccine, so we wanted to check in and ask how the provincial plan is going in terms of the distribution and storage of vaccines. So could you give us a detailed update on that, please?
I'm going to pass it over to the expert, but I'm just going to throw in my comments. I always say what we talked about today, about procurement, about supply chain, logistics, I'm an expert at that. I spent 30 some odd years in the US and Canada talking, but I will pass it to the expert, the Minister of Health. But what I can tell you before I pass it, this vaccine has to be stored in minus 76 degrees or 78, and it's going to be a huge logistical operation. And we've sat down, we're coming up with a solid plan, so when the vaccine hits our dock, and hopefully sooner than later, it's out the door. It's out the door to top priority areas, be it the frontline healthcare workers, long-term care, and so on and so forth. I'll pass it over to the Minister. Thank you.
Well, it's great that there is some promising news right now, both with the Pfizer vaccine, and today we heard about the Moderna vaccine, but they should be available within the next few months. But we do have an entire team at the Ministry of Health that is working on the plan for distribution, including people who are logistical experts, because as the Premier indicated, at least the Pfizer vaccine has to be stored at minus 75, minus 76 degrees. And so transportation is going to be really key, where it's going to be first delivered to and then how it's going to be distributed to ultimate vaccine locations. We also have people who are, in addition to being vaccine experts, we also have ethicists on this group to help us make sure that it's distributed fairly and equitably and to the people that absolutely need it the most. So this is a top priority for us in the Ministry of Health, because as soon as those vaccines are available, we want to get them to the people and get them in people's arms, because that's the best way to protect yourself. So we will be ready to go as soon as the vaccines are available.
Follow-up?
Thank you. My follow-up, Premier, we want to know how much is the holiday shopping season playing into your decision on whether to go into a lockdown?
Well, nothing's more important other than the health and safety of the people. Without the health and safety, and if we continue seeing that spike go up, Haley, and by the way, another great question, two great questions, I look at the health and safety over anything else. We'll always have other celebrations, we'll always have other Christmases, but if the numbers continue to spike, as I said before, I won't hesitate in a heartbeat to lock things down. I'm sorry for a lot of the small businesses, but it's better to have a healthy and safe community than one that the virus just is totally out of control. And there's still time for all of us, and we all play a critical part, not just the government, the people out there. It doesn't matter if I put color codes of purple, pink, whatever it is. At the end of the day, we need to follow the protocols. We need to make sure that we social distance. We got to stay at home. Leave when you have to get groceries. Don't bring your family out for a shopping excursion. Go one, or if you have to, bring another person, but that's it. And again, I'll pass it over to the Minister of Health. Thank you.
Well, the health and well-being of the people of Ontario is our most important priority, and that is why we are asking people to limit going out, to try and stay within your own group of people that live in the same household, to limit going out for non-essential purposes. And when large groups of people get together in places like malls, that can end up as a super spreader. So we need to be very careful about that. But of course, there are other ways that people can shop online and so on. We don't want people to miss out on having a happy celebration, but there are safe ways to do that in ways that aren't going to endanger your health or the health of the people around you.
Next question.
Your next question comes from Melissa Candelaria with your TV Halton. Please go ahead.
Hi, Melissa. How you doing?
Good, thank you. Thank you,
Good.
Premier. I guess just further to the previous question, it was around a month or two before, back at Thanksgiving, when the province had initiated a plan or a suggestion as to how we should celebrate that holiday.
Yeah.
And so further to the shopping question, have you discussed what your recommendations is to our residents, Halton and across Ontario, how we should be celebrating this coming holiday?
Well, we're still, what is it, about 6 weeks away still? I'm saying be cautious. I mean, be super cautious, and just make sure that we follow the protocols and not out there celebrating and having a large amount of people over to your house. We just can't have that now. But again, I'm going to pass it to the health expert. I'm passing over to the Minister of Health. Thank you.
Well, people do need to be very careful, and I have had several conversations with Dr. Williams about recommendations for the upcoming holiday season. I know that people want to get together with friends and family and celebrate. All of that's important, but we may need to look at it a little differently this year. But we will be coming forward with those suggestions in the next short while so that everybody will know where they stand, because I know that people are trying to make their plans for the holidays as they're coming forward, and we are working on that right now at the ministry, so we hope to have some information for you very shortly.
Follow-up?
Yes, and I guess just to localize it a little bit for me here. So
Sure.
A while ago, Halton was under the microscope and potential under the old threshold and going to a modified stage 2. You had received several letters from local politicians advising against that sort of thing because compared to Toronto and Peel, our numbers weren't as high or dangerous. Having said that, with the new threshold, we have been grouped in with those higher communities such as Peel and Toronto, and I just wanted to get a more clear answer as to why, when our numbers aren't suggesting that we are, lack of a better term, as bad or as dangerous as those regions are.
Yeah, so I think a lot of people I've talked to, and even out in Halton, and I'm not going to speak for everyone. I had one of the mayors text me and say, hey, I support the threshold going down. So I think, honestly, I think it was a real wake-up call when we saw the numbers potentially, I say potentially, hitting 6,500 cases a day. It was a real wake-up call for everyone. Health is the priority over anything. Without the health of the people, we won't have an economy. So our 100% focus is going to be making sure we lower and flatten this curve that we've seen take off. Not just here, we see it around Canada, we see it around the world, and we see it in the US. And so far, you know, even though the numbers are climbing, we still have an opportunity to get our hands around this with the help of the people. Without the help of the people, then it's not going to happen if we continue going out and celebrating.
Next question.
Your next question comes from Natasha McDonald with Radio Canada. Please go ahead.
Hi, Natasha.
Hi, Premier. We're seeing more and more deaths in long-term care, more than over 700 residents infected, 500 staff infected.
Yeah.
How much worse will it have to get? What's the threshold for a return to lockdown in red zones in Ontario?
Well, I would have to pass that to the ministry, but do you know what we need? This is just my opinion, not a health expert, but I don't have to be a health expert. We need mandatory 100% testing. The patients, everyone knows the patients aren't bringing this in. And God bless the staff, they're all heroes. And no one, the staff or visitors, no one would ever walk in to long-term care knowing they aren't well, right? Or they're showing symptoms. But we need 100% testing across the board to literally lock the long-term care down, knowing to eliminate. It's not going to be, you know, guaranteed 100%. It's never going there. But I'll tell you, we need to do it. And I'm actually having a good question because I'm having a meeting at 2:30 about it, and we need to lock this down tighter than we've ever had before. I'll pass it to the Minister of Health.
The testing is really key because we know that with a high rate of community transmission that we're seeing in some of the areas that are having breakouts, that it gets transmitted into long-term care homes by people who are doing so unwittingly. They don't intend to, but the testing is really key. And so some of the rapid access tests that are now available to us by Abbott, PanBio and ID Now, particularly ID Now because it can be used for quick diagnostic purposes, is going to be really important to deploy to first and foremost to long-term care homes, but also to areas where that are maybe more remote, where it takes several days in order to get test results back because the samples have to then be shipped to labs before they can be diagnosed properly. So these quick access tests are going to be really, really important, particularly in those two areas. But when we build that iron band around long-term care homes, that quick access testing is going to be really key.
Follow-up?
My follow-up is a question from my colleague Deanna Sumanak at CBC. She's asking, at what point would you consider shutting down schools? So what's the bar, for instance? Would it be community infections reaching a certain point or infections within schools rising to a certain point?
Well, that's the last resort to shut down schools. I know the parents enjoy that the kids are going to school. The kids enjoy it. And again, I want to give a shout out. The teachers, you're doing an incredible job. And the leadership within the schools that I just think the world over, the principals and vice principals, and I got to give a shout out to the school boards too. Everyone's doing a great job. And the person that helped design it is Minister Lecce. You know, he doesn't get enough credit, in my opinion. He did an incredible job putting this together. So I know the minister is going to be coming out in the next little while, coming up with a plan for the holidays, and I think it will work well, his plan that he's putting together.
Last question.
Your final question comes from Sean Jeffords with the Canadian Press. Please go ahead.
Hi, Sean.
Good afternoon, Premier. A short time ago, we scrummed Minister Fullerton, and she said that local medical officers of health could put in place additional protections for long-term care residents faster than your government could. But she declined to say what those protections should be. And Premier, I'm wondering what you think medical officers of health should be doing that they're not already doing to protect long-term care residents. And frankly, how is this not just passing the buck from your government to these local medical officers of health as the situation in long-term care gets worse?
Yeah. So knowing Minister Fullerton, I know her. I talked to her for an hour yesterday on Sunday, and she's fully engaged. She doesn't believe in passing the buck. Maybe she has ideas. I'll talk to her again today about it. But again, I get asked, Sean, I get asked 10 people on the street, you know, go to root cause. Here I go with my lean practices again. I apologize, but go to root cause, ask the 5 whys, and before you hit the 5th why do we have the infection? Again, it's not coming in from the clouds. It's not coming in from the patients. It's coming in from outside. No matter, and unwilling, you know, they obviously wouldn't do it because they're incredible people, and I think the world of them, but it's coming in through the staff or it's coming in through the visitors. That's the only way it's coming in. We need to lock it down. We need to have testing. But most importantly, Sean, it's not just testing people, getting the results back and having a standard test that we can get it back in 24 hours, 48 hours. When it comes to long-term care or health workers, getting the test back in 3 or 4 days, as much as it might seem pretty good, in my opinion, it's unacceptable. And we need to make sure that when people get tested, the frontline healthcare workers, long-term care or other healthcare workers, get immediate results. And going back to what the minister said, that's why I believe these rapid tests are going to be a big game changer, especially in the northern regions where the testing, you might have to travel a few hours to go to the closest testing area. So we're all over this. I'm going to be meeting with the minister at 2:30 and also a lot of the staff. But that's my recommendation. Let's lock this down even tighter than we have already. And I want to give a shout out one more time to all the healthcare workers, PSWs, at long-term care. You're incredible people, and thank you for putting the community and long-term care patients ahead of yourselves. I think the world of you.
Follow up?
Premier, I wanted to follow up on a different subject.
Sure.
Over the weekend, Peel's Medical Officer of Health issued a Section 22 order to introduce fines for businesses that are clearly flouting public health rules in that region. And he's saying that they're driving infections there. And I'm wondering, does the province need to get more serious on its end about addressing spread in workplace in hotspots like Peel? And does it need to issue fines of its own? And beyond that, does it actually need to publicly name businesses? Because the approach to identifying where these workplace outbreaks has been very piecemeal across the province. Would you be willing to name some of these businesses? Yeah, so another good question, Sean. I can tell you, Dr. Lowe is doing a great job. I had a good conversation last week with him. But people out there have to take the responsibility. And I truly believe vast majority of the people do. But when it comes to COVID, it only takes 1, 2, 3 people, and all of a sudden they spread it and it starts multiplying like rapid fire. So the inspections, I think, and I'll confirm this tomorrow, but I think we're up to like 25,000 inspections that were going into businesses. And then there's different levels of bad actors, right? There's the really, really bad actors, bang, fine them, shut them down, do whatever you can. And then there's people that are following the protocols and they might need a little support from the Minister of Labour, the inspector that comes in there and might say, okay, maybe tweak this, tweak that, and giving them a warning. But there's a big difference between totally bad actors that just snub their nose on the protocols. They need to have the most severe fines. And that's with these private parties. Guys, if we continue with the private parties on the weekend, I thought there was like 4th of July happening up in north of Etobicoke. I was up by my office and I'm seeing fireworks going all over there. God bless you. Have fun. But guys, you got to have fun within your own family and your own household. And so that was disturbing. Now what we're going to do, we're going to see what happens 2 weeks down the road, as we did with Thanksgiving, as we did with Halloween. Man, like if everyone doesn't follow, the vast majority of people are following
the rules. So that's what I'm just asking people. Please just follow the rules, and we're going to get through this. There is hope. There is hope for us to continue moving forward. Just look at it around the world, the lockdowns in France and in UK and Ireland and Spain, and I could name them all. You see what's happening in the US, our closest neighbor. You see what's happening out in Manitoba. And by the way, Premier Pallister's doing a great job out there. Manitoba, you be it Alberta, or you see the whole West Coast. The cases are going like rapid fire. And do me a favor, folks, don't be traveling if you have to. I guess you have to, but try to stay within our province. Don't be going to Manitoba. They're great people over there. Don't be going into Quebec. They're both great provinces, but let's just stick with Ontario, and that's what we need to do. Is there another question coming up? I just want to talk about this announcement again. This is a massive, massive announcement. I don't know if people realize how big of an announcement it is. For years and years, just imagine having 7,000 procurement officers down here compared to a place like Canadian Tire or Walmart or Costco or Loblaws in the government. So I'll give you an example. I always like using the toilet paper or paper or pens. Just imagine all these entities across Ontario all buying toilet paper when we have Kimberly-Clark and Irving Tissue down the street here in Toronto that we can place direct orders and people can go online. And it's just common sense that you buy in bulk, and each, no matter what agency or what department or what ministry, you want your box of toilet paper, you go online like any other place, you order it and they ship it in. But just think of toilet paper being bought by a distributor that sells it to another distributor, that the third distributor then sells it to the province with massive markups. And by the way, and we could be paying all sorts of prices. I guarantee you, we were probably paying 20 different prices for toilet paper or paper and pens. But what the ministers want to do, we want Ontario-made products here, create more jobs, more opportunities, and keep the jobs here rather than shipping them all over the world to get our products. It's unacceptable. We're changing the scorecard, and Minister Fedeli is doing a great job. So, you know, typical government, and I say typical government, I don't always see eye to eye with any government, but here and there, typical government has the form, and whoever comes up with a lower price, well, they're getting it. Well, no. Why don't we get additional points for a company that's here in Ontario? If it's out of 100, I'm just throwing out wild figures, give 10 points if you manufacture here, give 20 points. Because what happens, people bid on it, and guess what? They're shipping the goods down to Mexico to get made and being shipped up here. I don't want that. I want a made in Ontario products. There's so many jobs available. If Ontario focuses, give the first right of refusal. And by the way, be competitive, folks, because if we aren't competitive, then we have no choice. But we can compete against anyone, and we can create tens of thousands of jobs and billions of dollars right here in Ontario. Let's forget about everyone else. We're an economic powerhouse. We can do it, and we will do it. And it's going to help small businesses, some medium and large companies, buy Ontario made, and we have to lead by example, and that's what we're going to do. There's tens of billions of dollars out there that we're going to start producing here. We're going to worry about the people of Ontario, not worry about the rest of the world. We're worrying about the people of Ontario and creating jobs here, led by my great ministers. But thank you, everyone, and God bless you. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.